You know, I didn't really have plans to have a bucking horse retirement program. It all started with one horse named Rusty, who was arguably one of the greatest saddle broncs that's ever lived, in my opinion. He was a little bitty horse. He was ugly. If he was in a string of 1,000 head, he'd be the last one you'd pick to be a ranked bucking horse. And he was just an amazing horse. Back in about 91, 92, he was not getting to the end of his trail. He was past his prime in bucking. And I called Harry Vold and I said, "Hey Harry," I said, old Rusty, he's deserved a good retirement. I said, "Why don't you send him down here to me and I'll just take care of him." He sent Rusty, and he also sent Hermes Worm here. They were running mates, and they were probably they were a tight-knit couple of horses. Boy, they stuck right together. They had a lot of personality. Hermes Worm ran the pastures for a week, all through the night, nickering when Rusty died. For a solid week, I could hear him running around my house looking for that other horse. You know, then the next one was Alibi, and that was another really great saddle bronc of Harry Vold's. And then it just kind of started becoming a thing. Miss KC, she was just a great little mare. She was a first place horse every time. Out of the 11 horses that are buried right here, there's 100 NFR qualifications. This is 113 Bud. He had a twin brother. I don't know that they were twins, but they looked just alike, and they were full brothers. And the other one's name was Beau. Beau actually flipped over on me at the NFR in the 9th round and took me out of the 10th round. He flipped over and screwed up my knee one year at the finals. And then both horses were really good, but one was good in the chute and one was bad, and this one was good in the chute. Satan's Own was another mare. She actually came to me as an old lady, and she was in foal and nobody knew it. And I came down here one morning and she had a little filly standing beside her, about the size of a jackrabbit. And none of us could believe it. And I called Fred Dorenkamp and I said, "Hey, this, you're not going to believe it, but Satan's had a colt." And supposedly it was by a high-powered bucking horse stud out of Canada, and she was one of the best barebacks there was. But the filly didn't want to buck at all. I raised her up for about 4 years, and she didn't have a bone in her body that wanted to buck. This is Good Times. That's named after Good Times Feddersen, Alfalfa Feddersen's dad. This was a bulldog and reject, and they named him Good Times after Alfalfa's dad's nickname. And you could tie him to the fence at the rodeo and saddle him like a saddle horse and then lead him in the bucking chutes. He went to the NFR 13 times, and he was a reserve champion. Really good horse, first place horse. This is probably one of my favorites, No Savvy. They bucked him in both the bronc riding and the bareback riding. I had him probably 3 times in the bronc riding, and he was a little horse, and he was as powerful as any of them I ever got on. And he went, the minute the split second you nodded your head, he was bucking. And there wasn't ever one that jumped any harder or kicked any harder than he did. And he had a lot of personality. He was a fun one to retire. You know, a lot of these horses live 10, 15 years here on the ranch. Tequila, this was a gray horse of Benny Butler's that he'd always take a run for about the first 20, 30 yards and then really buck. He was another one of them that everybody didn't get along with. But if you were on your game, he was a good horse. Motown, this is another horse of Benny's that would buck in a saddle or in a bareback rig, and he went the NFR 9 times. And this horse was just a big old feather-footed horse that would circle, and he was first place every time. Really, you shouldn't have to even show up if you drew him. They ought to just sent you the check. I'm No Angel of the Flying U. This was a great horse with a great bloodline. I think his mom's name was Angel Blue. They were both really good horses. I win money on him and his mom. And that's all of the bucking horses, but this is the one we just buried, and this is Boot Scootin of Benny Butler's. He went to the NFR 13 times, and he just died in August. And I'm still waiting on Bobby Kerr to get my headstone made. This is the last horse that I've retired, and I've been on every horse that's retired here. I've been on and won money on at some point. They were all first place horses. You know, these horses, I saw them get old, and I saw them get where they couldn't do it anymore because of their age, and I thought it was just fun to bring them out here and try to give them an amazing retirement. And I know they had that here. You know, this is a good ranch, and this bottom all along this bosky river here is always lush grass, and this is where they stayed, down in this river bottom. They could go anywhere on the ranch, but all this whole river bottom is where they really like to be. And these old geldings, whenever they get kind of past their prime, there's not really a place for them to go, but this has been a good spot for them.